Hey, Rod Bergeron here with you. And today we're going to look at Paynes Gray. We're going to do a deep dive on Paynes Gray. Let's do it. So believe it or not, I get asked all the time, if I had to use one color, what would it be? And for me, the answer is Paynes Gray. It's very versatile. It can go on super dark like black, or if you add enough water to it, it splits out into a gray and into a blue. And it's just really versatile on the page. So let's have a look at some of the uses for Paynes Gray. All right, so this is a palette that I use quite often. It has some white in it. This is some dirty mucky white. This is black, and this is Paynes Gray. And you can see in here where there's a little bit of that shows up as blue. And this is a mixture of Paynes Gray where I had mixed it and it's dried up. So you can see where that blue has split out of there. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is minimalizing my painting style. So and by minimalizing my painting style, I mean, like, how is it that I can get the maximum value of a minimum amount of time? I guess that's how I think of it is. I want to spend a little bit of time, but I want to get a really good painting. And one of the ways to do that is with one single color. And a singular color is called monochromatic, one color. Okay, so Paynes Gray is a really good way to do that. Now you can see how much water I put on there, right? Like, that's a lot of water. We're only going to use Paynes Gray though. And we're going to put a whole bunch of water in here, and we're going to pick up a little bit of pigment, okay? Just a little bit of pigment, and we're going to put that on here for our background color. But you can see how wet that is, and I'm going to do an example of that particular painting on here. So I'm using a 1-inch flat brush, and I'm going to use this 1-inch flat brush for this entire painting, okay? And Paynes Gray. So we're going to put in a little bit of a tree line in the background here. Now most of this is going to get covered up, but I'm going to put in my pine trees by just doing a little bit of a tap like that, okay? And you can see how some of this has already started to turn a little bit blue coming out of there already. And there's a water line across here. We're going to make it come back across here. We're going to pick up a little bit more pigment in that. We're going to just do that. So you can see how versatile that flat brush is, right? It just makes a really nice line there. And because of how much water I have in this, it's splitting, it's migrating out from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. And you can see where that blue is starting to come out of there also. All right, I'm gonna pick up a little bit more pigment and put it into the wash here. So making this wash a little bit thicker. So that's going to be one tree line. This is going to be another. I'll make it a little bit darker. Okay, so. And wet is a really good technique to make Paynes Gray work. You can see where that blue is starting to come out of there already, right? All right, so this is starting to dry up a little bit over here. It's still fairly wet over on this side, but this is where we're going to continue to work. And this is a flat 1-inch brush, and we're going to pick up some more Paynes Gray. We're going to take our wash here and add a little bit more pigment to it, okay? And we're just going to lay in some of the trees. We're going to lay in some background trees here first, actually. Okay, let's talk about using hair dryers in watercolor painting. A lot of what has to happen in watercolor painting is that you have to get a lot of the moisture off some of these areas so that you don't get this bleeding effect. Right now I want this bleeding effect, but I'm not going to want that to bleed like that through my entire painting. It's just going to be too loose. It's not going to have any definition to the other things that I put on here, but for a background, this is going to work really, really well. So I need it to be a little bit drier than this, not 100% drier. So one of the things that I would suggest that you do is, one, get a tissue. You can see where these big pools are on the side here. Just take your tissue, roll it into a nice little point like that. And then you can just touch that to this and you'll watch how quickly this will wick this away. So very quickly I dried up that whole wet area, and you can see that Paynes gray starting to come out there really nicely right now too. So again, roll it up into a point, touch it onto the wet area, and it'll wick a lot of that moisture away. Now if you were trying to dry that up with a hair dryer, you'd be forever and a week. Watercolor paper is made to stay wet. So you can just touch that along there. And I got a little bit of a pool going on here, but I think I'm going to want that pool, so I'm going to leave that for right now. Okay, so that's one way with just a regular tissue. The other way is hair dryer. But don't put this on high. It'll blow the water all over the place. So you want to have it so that it's blowing from one direction or the other. If you want your paint to move one way or the other, do that. Not on high, only on low. Here we go. Okay, so with just a couple of seconds, literally, I think it was about maybe less than a minute. This is mostly dry. I have one little puddle right here, but that's okay. I'm not going to be going near there anyways. So I'm just going to set my hairdryer down. Again, with the flat brush, we're going to pick up a little bit of this, a little bit more pigment and a little bit more, put it into the wash that we already have here. We're going to lay in some of these trees now. All right, so long linear strokes. Okay, so I took the hairdryer to this for probably just like a couple of minutes, and it's pretty much completely dry. And I'm just gonna do a couple of things to finish this. I really like what's happened here, but we need a little bit of definition in the foreground here of where there might be some bushes, where there might be a little bit of a undergrowth, I guess, would be a way to think of it. And that's not too bad. I think that's going to dry really nicely there. Okay, I really like what's happened here. It's really pushed that further into the background. If you wanted to, you could always come across here with, you know, just a little bit of a smaller strokes and add in a few more pine trees if you wanted to. You know, if you didn't want to, you know, this is watercolor, so you can come along here and just dab that right off. Just make that completely disappear. I think it actually looks better without it, to tell you the truth. Take some of that, more of that off there. I like this little bit of undergrowth that's going on there. Maybe add a little bit more concentrated pigment to this. Make it a little bit darker. Remember, your watercolor painting is always going to dry much, much lighter than it is while it's wet. So I'm going to add a little bit more pigment to that. All right, so last thing we have to do here, we have to add some, some foliage to our pine trees. because this is just like dead pine trees. Now, of course, if you wanted dead pine trees, you could just leave this as it is now and just walk away. But I'm going to take some Paynes gray here and a little bit of water, a little bit of pigment, and I'm going to add with this brush. Actually, am I going to use this brush? Yeah, sure. I'll start off using this brush. We're going to add a little bit of pine tree foliage and see what we get here. And again, you'll see I'm just tapping this. Okay, just tapping it. Pick up a little bit more pigment. So that those things that I had on there before, that was just simply the this is just the wood of the tree, and what I'm putting on now would be, you know, considered to be the pine tree needles or the foliage if you wanted. These pine trees have really not much foliage until you get quite a ways up them. So very low down, there's almost no foliage on the majority of these. I'm going to push that further into the background, just leave it a little bit lighter like that. And that might be where I leave this. That's a little bit too thick right there. So I'm just going to take some of that off, just like that maybe. Yeah, that's not too bad at all. All right. I think that might be it. That might be my Mew Lake pine trees. Yes. Squirt that around a little bit. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. He says as he thinks to himself, oh, I think I'm going to put a little bit more in right there. It's not too bad. I think that's it. So that's painting with Paynes gray, one singular color. I used one inch, I guess this is a 3/4 inch flat brush. That's the whole thing. Give that a try. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or comment, please leave it in the comment section. If you're currently a subscriber, I thank you very much. And if you're not currently a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. If you haven't hit the little bell icon beside subscribe, please do that now. It's really important so you get all the notifications of my future work.